Okay, so people who are listening or watching are going to say, okay, you had a lump in your neck. It was probably just a swollen gland. You actually have a biopsy that said it was a lymphoma, yes? Is that correct?
I have a biopsy on my website that shows that I have a 3.7 centimeter tumor on the right side of my neck. And I actually went and got 3 different diagnoses from different doctors. And they all said different things. One said I had stage 1 cancer, one said I had stage 0 cancer, one said I had precancerous. And so at that point, I gathered some information about the medical industry at the time and thought, this seems like hocus pocus woo-wah. And they offered me a cervical cancer vaccination at the time. And I was like, how is this related? So that to me was enough for me to say, you know what, like I'm gonna opt out of this. And it wasn't stage 4 cancer. They weren't saying you need to go for chemo next week, you need to go for surgery next week. They were saying, look, we can do surgery and we can remove it if you want. And they've done surgery for a lot smaller lumps for sure. I also don't want to take away from people who have had stage 4 cancer or advanced cancer. Mine was very early and I was able to catch that very early. But it was enough for me to say, you know what, I don't want to just remove it. And that's something that the Indigenous people also taught me, was that if we have a sickness or like a tumor or a lump in our body, obviously tumors aren't meant to be anywhere in our body. So they said, if you just go and you do medical and you cut it out, that doesn't necessarily address the root cause. And I wanted to address the root cause once and for all because I knew I had to stop eating like that. So that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to go and actually get healthy once and for all and go back to my roots, go back to nature. So I went and found a medical doctor who was helping people with vitamin C injections and helping people heal cancer naturally. And then I worked with a naturopath and I started juicing 6 times a day. So I drank 6 vegetable juices a day. And then every time I had a craving for junk food, I thought, okay, how can I fulfill this craving in the most natural way possible? So I got into the kitchen and I started making recipes.
Okay.
And that's where these recipes evolved from, was like, okay, I'm craving chicken nuggets, I'm craving chocolate, I'm craving candy, I'm craving pancakes, waffles, whatever it was, I found a recipe that would nourish my body instead of poison it and make it worse.
So the new book is, cancer-free with food. So what are the most toxic foods that everyone should avoid?
The most obvious one is sugar, white sugar and corn syrup. The body just doesn't know how to break that down. It's just way too much toxicity for the lymphatic system and the liver and the whole body. So that one's the obvious one. Also, a lot of preservatives like fillers, additives. I found a lot of research on those that have proven that those create toxins in the body, carcinogens, which lead to cancer. So obviously avoiding anything genetically engineered and then also even microwave foods, because that's considered a form of radiation. So I thought that was fascinating. And then also I found some studies that were linked to foods that have been sprayed with pesticides. So fruits and vegetables sprayed with pesticides is incredibly toxic and does increase your chances of getting cancer. And some people say, well, that sucks. I just want to be able to go to the supermarket and buy fruit and vegetable. I know. So do I, but if we're in this country, in America, we have to buy organic produce or grow it ourselves because we are at risk of getting a lot of pesticide exposure. And then also farmed seafood was really toxic. I was surprised about how toxic farmed seafood was. I didn't think it could be that awful.
It's really bad. And as you know, in all my books, I say, please, 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 only wild caught fish. And we're beginning to see actually tricks. I saw on a restaurant menu actually this past week that they were advertising ocean-raised seafood.
What's that?
And yeah, it's that. That's called farmed, seafood. But it sounds so much more, wild ocean raised, and there was the word raised, caught my attention. And everybody says, oh, but it's, ocean, it's wild. No, it's not.
Yeah, they're smart with their marketing. That's something people need to be cautious of, is the packet might look natural or like say ocean raised fish, but it's just marketing.
Yeah, very true. Okay, so a lot of my listeners know that I've been talking about the importance of vitamin D, and off camera we were talking about that. So what are your recommendations for people in terms of vitamin D?
Well, I recommend getting blood work every 12 to 24 months and just checking your vitamin D levels, and if they're down, take supplements, but also go out and get sunshine and don't be afraid of the sun. I also did a lot of research on skin cancer, and there are legit studies that say that more cancer is caused from skin cancer and the carcinogens in
From
skin
the
cancer, sunscreen, and how toxic sunscreen is versus the sun.
Very true. That's part of my 7 deadly disruptors, and sunscreen is right up there on carcinogens. And it's interesting, the University of California, San Diego, just kind of down the road from here, published a number of papers on the effect of vitamin D in cancer, and they've found that most people with cancer have low vitamin D levels. And there's a very strong association, in their opinion, between low vitamin D and the development of cancer. And I've certainly seen that in my practice. In fact, shockingly, they think the average American should take 9,600 international units of vitamin D3 a day to have an adequate level. And in their published research, they have never seen vitamin D toxicity at up to 40,000 international units a day, routinely. So I think there's this huge fear, particularly among practicing healthcare professionals, that vitamin D toxicity is, it's horrible. And I see a number of my cancer patients who I run their vitamin Ds 100, 120 nanograms per milliliter, and their oncologists say, you're vitamin D toxic and get that down. And next time I see them, their vitamin D level is like 40, and I go, what happened? I said, oh, my oncologist said I'm killing myself with vitamin D. And I said, well, that's funny, the data shows just the opposite.
Yeah, it's because they're trained in such old school things, same as nutritionists. It's all
Correct.
Old school. We're still trained that we should be promoting corn and grains, and that's awful. Look at the health stats. So I personally take vitamin D supplements myself, and it's also something free that we can get straight from the sunshine, which I talk about in my book also. I talk about here's some free natural treatments that you can do if you have cancer or want to prevent cancer, and getting sunshine is one of them.
Yeah, absolutely.